Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. We have some AEW news to get into today, and let's kick off with the big story from a couple of days ago. It's taken a while to get to this one, but that is the sudden and shock retirement of Lio Rush. Now, this is obviously a massive surprise considering Lio Rush had just made his AEW debut at Double or Nothing only a couple of weeks ago. He was the 21st entrant, the Joker entry into the Casino Battle Royale, and he subsequently announced his retirement after getting injured at the event. A little more than a week or so after appearing at the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view, Lio Rush looks to be calling it quits from professional wrestling. Rush took to Twitter on Tuesday evening to announce his retirement, thanking AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he is currently signed in the process. This is the quote he had to say. It's quite a lengthy statement. It says, quote, "I'm retiring from pro wrestling. That's been a crazy ride, but it's time to get off and do what truly makes me happy. Thank you AEW and New Japan Global for everything." Now, on Rush's Instagram page, he elaborated on the reasons for retiring. In a lengthy statement, Rush revealed that he'd suffered an injury which he initially thought to not be too serious, only for it to start to affect his everyday life. He said, quote, "I have written and erased this post so many times purely out of not being able to wrap my head around this. The moment I went home in a sling, I kept saying to myself, this is like any other time I got a bruise or strain, and I will shrug it off and continue on my new journey. Once the pain subsided, I started to feel just how uncomfortable it was to feel my arm hanging from my body. I sunk into an immediate and rapidly growing depression because I knew something was wrong. I got the news that I'd be taking some time off due to an injury. Me thinking it would only affect my wrestling obligations, I still tried to go about my days as I knew them. I realized just how much this would affect my everyday life. For anyone that knows me, you know I work endlessly for me and my family. It became more and more frustrating every day finding little things I could no longer do, like simply putting on a shirt, and much harder the fact to deal with not being able to pick up my newborn son." Now, Rush revealed that he'd suffered the injury at Double or Nothing, where he was the Joker entrant in the Casino Battle Royale. He closed his statement by saying he would fulfill his contractual obligations to New Japan Pro Wrestling before officially retiring, and also posted an x-ray of his injury. He said, quote, "Now here comes the part that's kept me up ever since Double or Nothing, knowing I just made my surprise debut in one of the most exciting times in my career. That part sucked, but I'm grateful. Grateful for the opportunities I've had the past year after my WWE release. So cool of AEW still wanting to sign me despite separating my AC in the Casino Battle Royale, which would have led to me being the first person in history to be signed to two major organizations simultaneously. This is an unexpected turn down a road I would have and could never have saw coming. But I'm looking at this as a blessing in disguise. Since the injury, it's given me some time to think about what I want in life, what I want for my wife and kids, and what's going to make me happy as far as my mental health is concerned. The timing of this injury has forced me to stop and reevaluate, and ultimately, it's resulted in making the decision to retire from professional wrestling. Thank you to all the fans who have fought it out with me for the past 7 years, and the people in my corner. Thank you to all the promoters and friends that I've met along the way who believe in me and my vision. This has been a great ride, but it's time to get off and do what truly makes me happy. Due to contractual obligations with New Japan Pro Wrestling, I will be making my final appearances once I am healed. But for now, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'll see you soon." So this was, obviously, massively surprising. Considering, as I mentioned, he had just made his debut for AEW. He was a surprise entrant in the Casino Battle Royale. There was discussions about him signing with AEW. He's just said that AEW still wanted to sign him despite him injuring his shoulder in the Battle Royale. And he had those New Japan Pro Wrestling commitments as well that he was going to complete. There's some rumors, and we'll touch on this in a second, that New Japan were happy for him to sign with AEW. And it looked like, for a period of time, because Lio Rush's career was so up and down. Obviously, he was signed to WWE and had the success initially on 205 Live, became the manager for Bobby Lashley, then kind of exploded into success, and then as quickly as that success came, it disappeared, and he had this reputation of being difficult maybe to work with or wanting more money. There was discussions about expenses on the road, and he wasn't making any money on the road, and he was actually working at a deficit on the road. And then he had all of this heat, gets taken off of television, goes back to NXT, makes a name for himself, becomes cruiserweight champion, but eventually leaves the company. It was so up and down for him in WWE, and I think he has been painted with a maybe a bit of an unfortunate reputation because of that. And he had slowly been building that up with his work with MLW, with New Japan, and subsequently with AEW, and there was no doubt ever about the guy's talent. I mean, again, the heat when it comes to Lio Rush almost goes back to one of his first dates in the company, right? He got signed to WWE, and I think one of the first things he said was talking about, was it when Tenille Dashwood got released by WWE? I think it was at the time she was competing as Emma, and I think she just faced Asuka, and then she got released, and he did a tweet talking about, obviously, she wasn't ready for Asuka and all that kind of stuff, and he got a ton of heat from people like Kevin Owens, I think Samoa Joe. Lots of people called him out at the time, saying, you've just got here, time to pipe down, that kind of stuff, and throughout his time in WWE, there was ups and downs. And like I mentioned, he does have this reputation as maybe being someone that would have been difficult to work with or had a difficult attitude, all that kind of stuff. But he had slowly rebuilt that through his work with MLW, through his work with New Japan, and that appearance of AEW. And it looked like finally we were going to see the best version of Lio Rush. So obviously it was a massive surprise. And I think the reaction's been largely mixed to it, I think. Because this isn't the first time that Lio Rush has said this or teased this. When he was released by WWE, he teased retirement, said he wanted to focus on his music career. I think he even did release a rap album and spoke about his desire to never wrestle again. He was like, if I never wrestle again, I won't have a problem with it. I think he maybe did some GCW appearances as well with Joey Janela and all that kind of stuff, but he's teased it in the past. So some people, when he made this announcement a couple of days ago, were like, I don't believe it. Okay, sure, you're retiring, just like you said before. And there were certainly some people specifically that didn't buy this. Personally, I tend to believe it. I think the injury, obviously, look, you don't say those things once he got released by WWE. You don't pursue a career in rap and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how long he hasn't been happy with professional wrestling. And that's kind of come across, I think, here, that maybe these thoughts have been in his mind for a while. They certainly were there when he left WWE, and they were certainly there even when he was under contract with WWE, when he was off for all that time after the run on the main roster. Again, he's had this up and down relationship just with pro wrestling in general, and it's kind of come across at points that maybe he just doesn't like this anymore, doesn't love this the way that he used to at one point. And maybe this injury that he suffered at Double or Nothing, he's realized, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore. And if that's what the conclusion he's come to, then all power to him. I'm a huge mental health advocate. If there's any part of this, of pro wrestling, if there's any part of performing or doing whatever that he's not happy with, and it's a drain on his mental health, and it's difficult for him to overcome, and he just wants to spend time with his family, his kids, and he wants to be there for his family and kids, then more power to Lio Rush. More power to him. So ultimately, that's the decision he's come to. I think the surprising element to it, obviously, is the timing of it all. But it would appear that his mind is set. And on the flip side of things, would I be surprised if Lio Rush wrestles again? No, of course I won't, because things can change. Maybe it's just the case of Lio Rush just, you know what, he just needs to step away longer than he did before. Maybe it's a case of stepping out of the spotlight for 4 or 5 years. He's an incredibly young guy. He's still in his 20s. So maybe it's a situation where he steps away for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then maybe then once he's matured, he decides, you know what, I do want to come back, and my injuries have healed up, I feel good, my kids are a bit more grown, they want to see what I can do, and maybe that's the situation, who knows. But ultimately, he's decided, you know what, it's not for me anymore, I'll call it a day. And if it is what it is, then obviously, first of all, I hope he gets healthy soon with his injury, and furthermore, I hope he has sustained mental health and physical health in his post-pro wrestling career. We have to look at that. Now, AEW President Tony Khan did release a statement talking about Lio Rush's sudden retirement. This is what Tony Khan had to say, quote, "Lio Rush reached out to me today, and he shared that he'd planned to announce his retirement from pro wrestling tonight. While this news was unexpected, I'm glad that he's made a choice that he's confident will make him and his family happy. Lio is a great talent, and I enjoyed briefly working with him, and I absolutely wish him the best." Now, this was also followed up by a statement by MLW CEO Court Bauer. Of course, as I mentioned, Lio Rush did do some work with MLW as well. This is what the full statement from MLW had to say, quote, "Lio Rush exits active competition in the squared circle. Major League Wrestling was informed yesterday that former world middleweight champion Lio Rush has elected to retire and focus on his family projects outside of the ring following an injury." This is what Court Bauer had to say, quote, "Lio is a brilliant athlete who made a difficult decision, but one that I admire for his commitment to putting his family first. I, along with everyone at Major League Wrestling, wish Lio continued success for the next chapter of his life and thank him for sharing his extraordinary talents with the world." Now, when it comes to Lio Rush as well, and I mentioned the surprising element of all of this was that he just made his debut for AEW, but also he had these commitments with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which he's spoken about. Now, once he's recovered from his injury, he is going to finish up these commitments with New Japan and then officially retire. Well, it's an interesting situation when it comes to what his situation was with New Japan, because on the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Dave Meltzer said that New Japan Pro Wrestling gave Rush permission to sign with an American company like AEW, but New Japan had prioritized priority on his dates. This was kind of a report that was out there anyway. Rush's deal also allowed him to work or wrestle for MLW and on the Indies. New Japan had the authority to decline non-New Japan bookings, but they did not. So I think that's interesting. Now, Rush is set to wrestle on this week's New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong show. That was taped a while ago. So, again, it's interesting when it comes to that contract, because I think if you want to move away from the Lio Rush part of this story here, it does go to show what kind of contracts New Japan are offering talent that is based in the United States. Talents that they eventually do want to come over to Japan. Obviously, it's difficult because of the pandemic and especially the outbreak there right now, but talents that are primarily based in the United States and work at the New Japan Strong show based in the United States, that's maybe the kind of contracts that they're giving them. Basically saying, look, ideally we want you over here in Japan. We can't do that at the moment. We still want you to do commitments for the New Japan Strong show, but that's only certain dates and it's taped as well. So we'll sign you to a contract. Once we can get things opening up, you'll pretty much be over here in Japan quite a lot of the time. But whilst you're over in the United States, we don't have a problem with you signing with a company like AEW, like Impact Wrestling, like MLW. We just want priority on your dates and the ability to turn them down if need be. I think that's interesting, considering that obviously there's a bunch of free agents out there right now that have just been released by WWE. One's in April and one's only a couple of weeks ago, that certainly they could get a similar contract from New Japan in the same vein that Lio Rush was getting. I think that's very telling as well. So obviously ignoring the Lio Rush side of things, I think it shows how New Japan are looking at possibly the contracts of the American-based talent going forward. That's worth considering. Now, Greg Hamilton is a SmackDown announcer, and he certainly didn't have exactly nice things to say about Lio Rush when he announced his retirement. As I mentioned, it was reported that Lio Rush announced his retirement from wrestling after he suffered an injury at AEW Double or Nothing. But it was reported that WWE announcer Greg Hamilton posted a negative tweet about Rush's retirement, but he later deleted it. You can see it on the screen there. Hamilton said, quote, "Wow, unreal. If we didn't have our own lives and families to take care of, I might just pretend to give a..." No. And then it says, "On behalf of the wrestling family and community who work for a living, on to the gym." So Greg Hamilton, obviously not a fan of Lio Rush. As I mentioned, this could possibly be due to obviously his heat that he had in WWE. Certainly, there was people there that didn't like the guy for a variety of reasons. Nevertheless, he later deleted it, probably because he probably got some backlash about it and thought, you know what, it's not even worth it. I find it humorous that whenever people said, oh, I don't care, yet they care enough to tweet about it. I've had this on social media. I'm sure you've probably had it on social media when you put out an opinion and then someone says, I don't care. Well, if you don't care, why have you responded? I always find that bizarre. What I did want to talk about as well is obviously SmackDown airs on a Friday night, but so has Dynamite in recent weeks. These Friday night Dynamite shows that haven't been doing too great in terms of the viewership and the ratings. A lot of people have been questioning what's the crossover between Friday night SmackDown on Fox and AEW Friday night Dynamite on TNT from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Is there any crossover from SmackDown on Fox from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.? Well, not really, is the answer there. Now, there's been a relatively low number of crossover viewers from WWE SmackDown on Fox to AEW Dynamite on TNT, airing in the 10 p.m. Friday night time slot over the past few weeks. Now, the May 28 SmackDown averaged 1.928 million viewers with a 0.50 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic. The AEW Friday night Dynamite on TNT episode that same night averaged 526,000 viewers with a 0.20 rating in the key demo. Now, SmackDown aired at 8 p.m. Eastern, while Dynamite aired at 10 p.m., the first Friday night Dynamite show to air this year due to NBA on TNT. Now, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter has reported that of people who had watched both TNT and TNT and Fox available in their homes, only 13.77% of people who watched at least 1 minute of SmackDown also watched at least 1 minute of Dynamite. It was noted that there were 3.858 million viewers who watched at least 1 minute of SmackDown on Fox. So that's fascinating. Considering that there was, there's only 13% of people that watched 1 minute of SmackDown, that watched 1 minute of Dynamite. Not good. And it goes to show all of this discussion as we've got into previously here on numerous videos. When people talk about the audiences, they're competing for the same audience. They're not. The AEW audience is obviously different to the WWE audience. Obviously, there's some crossover, 13%, not a lot. Which goes to show that all of this competition between, AEW want to get this crowd of people, SmackDown want to get this crowd of people different audiences. The SmackDown audience has been proven to not really care about what AEW is doing. Only 13% of them do. So I find that very, very interesting, frankly, I do. And you could argue that part of that SmackDown audience on Fox is just people that like to watch Fox network television, because not the entirety of that audience watches Raw on Monday, and can you blame them? But I find that fascinating, and I suppose we can kind of rule it out because it does lead to interesting implications for Rampage when that debuts in August, because the general feeling was, well, Rampage is going to air on TNT at 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Coming out of SmackDown, fans are going to be jazzed. They're going to want that third hour of pro wrestling and a different third hour of pro wrestling. So they're going to watch SmackDown from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Fox and enjoy it. And then they're going to go over to TNT and watch Rampage watch the AEW presentation of Rampage. And the answer is maybe not. Maybe not. How is AEW going to overcome this? Those are certainly questions that I think they're going to have to consider going forward. So that's fascinating as well. There hasn't been this crossover. And whilst obviously Dynamite being preempted for the NBA has been a massive pain in the backside for Tony Khan and All Elite Wrestling over the course of the last few weeks, a positive they can look at this and get out of this maybe is that this has kind of been a bit of a pilot, if you will, for how difficult it's going to be for Rampage later on this year. That if you're expecting some crossover of the fans that are watching SmackDown to go over to TNT, to go over to a different network at a later time slot and watch the product, they're just not really going to do it. You've got your own separate fan base. You have to find a way of engaging them. You have to find a way of getting that fan base that's watching on a Wednesday, that's committed to watching on a Wednesday, that is going to watch at 10 p.m. on a Friday. That's difficult because life gets in the way. Plans get in the way, and there isn't this lead-in. This isn't this crossover. SmackDown isn't a lead-in for AEW Rampage on Fridays because it's not been a lead-in for AEW Dynamite on Fridays. So it's an interesting prospect for AEW going forward. There's no doubt about that. Now, speaking of Rampage, Jim Ross has given his thoughts on the signing of Mark Henry. And Jim Ross has said that Mark Henry joining AEW proves that Rampage will not be a throwaway show. Now, this was on the latest episode of the Grilling JR podcast. Commentator Jim Ross broke down the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Now, of course, at the event, longtime WWE superstar and Hall of Famer Mark Henry made a surprise appearance to announce he'll be a commentator for AEW Rampage on Friday night starting August 13th. It was announced that Henry had signed a multi-year deal with the company, and Henry recently spoke about the conversation he had about Vince McMahon about appearing on the show, but Ross believes that Henry will help the company in many ways. Ross also spoke about how surprised he was to hear he was leaving the WWE umbrella to join AEW. He said, quote, "He likes helping others. You know, he's got a pretty good eye for talent. He's coachable. He likes to mentor, so that was pretty cool. It gives me credence that the Friday night show Rampage is not going to be throwaway. It's not going to be space filler. I was kind of surprised that Mark got out from under the WWE banner and is coming to work with our team. It's a win-win for everybody. I believe it also opens the door for, potentially down the road for Mark to have another match or two. He's still got the itch, it seems like to me. I didn't see him all day, so they kept him sequestered all day. It didn't leak, it never got out, and he'll do a real good job there. He'll be part of the team on a regular, ongoing basis in multiple roles, part of the Rampage broadcast team, which will premiere Friday the 13th in August." Now, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with JR on that point, that just because Mark Henry's joining the team, the broadcast team for Rampage, that means that it's not going to be throwaway. Because frankly, Paul White, the Big Show, joined the broadcast team for AEW Dark Elevation. That's still on YouTube, and frankly, I've only seen a couple of episodes of that. It's hardly set the world alight. It's just an extension of AEW Dark. So I don't know if realistically anyone coming in, you know, in the same vein that said Paul White or Mark Henry, I don't think that goes, oh, see, Rampage is not going to be throwaway. Mark Henry's on commentary. That's not really a selling point. It's not really a selling point. It's part of the thing you'll be interested. I'm interested to see how Mark Henry does, but I don't know if that's going to be the difference between people tuning in or not. That's not going to be the difference of people going, I've just finished watching SmackDown. Do I want to watch a third hour of wrestling? Well, Mark Henry's on commentary. Yes, please. I don't think it's going to work like that. What it will work on is the talent used, and if it's an extension of Dynamite, which is what Tony Khan has said it will be. Now, whether or not it is, time will tell. Considering it's on TNT, it's not on YouTube, that means they've got to satisfy the executives at Warner Media. So one would suggest and think they're going to heavily hype up that show, and they're going to have major talent on that show on a regular basis. I don't think it matters too much whether Mark Henry's on commentary about whether that show's treated in terms of importance and legitimacy. It'll be the talent and the storylines that invoke that show's importance. Time will only tell, though. We'll have to wait until August until we see Rampage debut on TNT. Andrade. Andrade, of course, Andrade El Idolo, he's going on in NXT and AEW at this point. He's taken to Twitter today and reminded fans that he was not born in WWE. Now, Andrade, of course, made his AEW debut last week on Friday Night Dynamite. He was the newest client of Vicky Guerrero. He cut a brief promo, made it known he wants to be the new face of AAA and AEW. Of course, Andrade recently signed to AAA and will challenge the AEW and Impact World Champion for his AAA Mega Championship at Triple Mania on August 14. Now, Andrade sent a message out on Twitter today and asked what's next. He said, quote, "I was not born in WWE. I'm ex-WWE, yes, but I'm ex-CMLL, ex-New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now I'm the superstar of AEW and Lucha Libre AAA. What's next?" So there you go. Andrade reminding people that he's not just a WWE star. Obviously, he's probably best known for that. In terms of the wider general, pro wrestling universe, people will have known him from his time in New Japan. People will have known him from his time in CMLL, and people know the name Andrade, but they certainly know it in the mainstream because of WWE. But he's right. He was not born in WWE. As far as what his plans are in AEW going forward, time will only tell. But one thing's for sure, that's he's a big asset for AEW going forward, and I'm interested to see what he does with that opportunity. Finally, Kenny Omega had a nice interaction with I was going to call him a fan, definitely probably wasn't a fan of Kenny Omega. The conversation started after Omega pointed out that he delivered another greatest of all time performance exactly 3 years ago against Okada. On June 9, 2018, Omega defeated Okada to capture the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in a 2 out of 3 fall match at New Japan's Dominion 6.9. Now, when Omega asked fans to pick their favorite match from his collection of matches, a fan bluntly responded, and we'll get into this because I've got the tweets here. So this is what Omega says. He says, 3 years ago, another greatest of all time performance. I have many of these in various match variations. What is your favorite? Obviously pointing out about that 2 out of 3 falls match against Okada. This is what the fan had to respond to him. He said, F greatest, when's the last time you even had a good match? Quit living in the past. What have you done for us lately? Well, Omega responded pretty quickly. He said, well, you could start with the last match I had 2 weeks ago. I spoiled you bees for far too long. So certainly, Kenny Omega fighting back when it comes to that fan on social media. This is a weird thing with Kenny Omega. And it was certainly prevalent when he first was appearing for AEW, is that people kept saying, where's the Kenny Omega from New Japan? Where's the Kenny Omega from Japan? Oh, he's not the same. He's not the same. His booking isn't the same. Is he delivering 6-star matches? There's just this weird perception, I think, sometimes with New Japan matches. Now, don't get me wrong. Omega versus Okada, every time they've ever done it, is amazing. I've seen the matches, and they are 6-star classics. They're great. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed all of them the same way that everyone else did. But sometimes people, when they watch New Japan, they only see those matches. They don't see the week-to-week, or they don't see the matches in between. They just see these incredible matches, and they had that expectation that kind of match was every single match Kenny Omega had. Every time he had these matches, it was like a match versus Okada that was 6 stars. And that's just not possible. That isn't the case. So when he came to AEW, when he came back to the United States and he was wrestling in the United States on a regular basis for AEW, for some reason, people thought he was going to deliver that every single week. And it's like, what kind of expectation is that? That's no expectation at all. So they then responded that with, well, he's not the same guy. AEW have messed him up, and he hasn't. Kenny Omega is just as relevant now, arguably more relevant than he's ever been. He's the AEW World Champion. He's the Unified Impact World Champion. He's the AAA Mega Champion. He's on top of the world in AEW, in Impact Wrestling. He's a featured player on all of these shows and all of these different companies. So to ask what he's done lately, quite a lot. Quite a lot is the answer there. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of the AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go to the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.